Hey everybody, it's Engineering in Heels here, and today I'm going to talk about what makes a heel comfortable versus uncomfortable. So I have a few examples here in front of me, and I'll be picking them up throughout the review to show you. So the first thing that I want to talk about that is very uncomfortable in heels is this seam up here at the, like in the toe box. You see this in almost every open-toed pair of sandal, especially in cheaper pairs, but designers use it too. YSL does, Louboutin does, all of them do. The reason that most of them use this, at least from what I can determine, is that they use dissimilar materials a lot of times. So you'll have like a patent front here and then a calf back, or you might have, like for these, you might have a black front and then kind of a tan insert. I don't know why manufacturers do this because it is extremely uncomfortable to the foot. My feet blister fairly easily. They're usually kind of sweaty. I know that's gross, but it's just the truth. So any heel like this for me is killer. It basically will cause a blister if I'm wearing them for any long period of time or walking in them for any long period of time. So these aren't terrible. Like these YSLs, the seam is fairly smashed down, so there's not like a huge bump, but like in a cheap pair of heels, like if you pick up a pair of like Steve Madden heels, for example, a lot of times that'll be a very pronounced kind of lip there, and that just is killer for your feet. A lot of times it just rubs everything and it's super uncomfortable. So I did bring an example of a designer that I have that does not have that seam, and this is these Yeezy super crazy no heel heels. I call them like the Lady Gaga heels, but they don't have a seam, which is super nice. So you have the footbed is just one smooth piece of leather from the front to the back. This is so much more comfortable, and you don't have to worry about ever getting like a hot spot right there under your foot. So I highly, highly recommend if you're searching for heels, you know, look for some like this that don't have that break in the footbed. I will go out of my way to buy a pair of heels if I can see that it doesn't have that. So it's really important to me. It's super nice to have when it does happen, but it doesn't happen all that often. So some things you can do to mitigate this. I personally recommend using moleskin. It's kind of like a flannel with adhesive on the back. It's just really thin. Hikers a lot of times use this and put this on like blister prone areas of their feet. I don't apply it to my foot, but I do apply it to the footbed of the shoe. So I just cut out a little strip and then apply it. So I have here's my other pair of tributes that is in black. And you can see that I have added a thing of moleskin there. And that really, really helps. The edges of the moleskin are so soft and fuzzy that a lot of times that doesn't rub like that seam does. So it's definitely a good thing to do. The adhesive on these doesn't seem to be terribly marking or damaging, so if I ever needed to take them out of these shoes, for example, I wouldn't have to worry about having it be really sticky residue or worse, ripping the leather. So that is what makes a lot of open-toe heels uncomfortable, is if they have that seam. The next thing I want to talk about as far as comfortable versus uncomfortable is the concept of like heel pitch. So a lot of times you'll hear me refer to that in some of my 130 reviews. So you can see with this Hot Chick here how steep the pitch is. The steeper the pitch, the more uncomfortable the heel is, and that's just because your foot is put in such an unnatural position. So you can always think of, you're only getting the pressure on the ball of your foot, you're not getting it on the rest of the shoe, because as you can see, the rest of the shoe is just this like super steep roller coaster, and there's no way that you're really supporting most of your weight this way. So a lot of my 130s aren't the most comfortable because of this. However, they're beautiful, so I do it anyway. So that's why a lot of times if you see women opting for height, they won't go for, let's say, a 130 without a platform. They'll go for something with a platform. So these Chokkas are 150, but they have a platform, and you can see how the pitch is much milder on these. And even the tributes are a good example too, how that pitch is even less steep. So in terms of comfort, these will be the most comfortable, these will be second most comfortable, and then the Hot Chicks or anything steeper is going to be the least comfortable. Things I do as far as that goes, I don't wear my Hot Chicks with any padding. I have tried multiple types of padding in these, and it just feels unnatural and super duper weird. So I would say try padding in the ball of your foot. There are also these insoles that I have but haven't tried that are supposed to help shift the weight onto the back of the heel. I don't know if anything will really work with something with a pitch this steep, but I would say if you're having trouble walking in heels, you may want to evaluate the pitch. Even Socates have a pretty steep pitch to them, so that's something you may want to look at. I find the Chokkas to be extremely comfortable as far as a heel that like still has a very sexy pitch, but also has a platform. The other thing I want to talk about is, and I don't have a super great example here, but I will make do. The heel width is something that can affect the comfort as well. So a super thin stiletto heel is usually a lot less comfortable than a thicker, like the Cassidys that you saw me wear on Instagram the other day, or a wedge. The thinner the heel, the more unstable it typically is. So that's something to consider as well. A lot of times people find platforms more stable because they usually have a thicker bottom to the heel as well. I'm not in that club. I actually find non-platforms more stable to walk in, but that's kind of something to think of as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If there are any things that you experience with heels or you've noticed women or men experience while wearing heels. So if you have any thoughts, message me or leave them in the comments. I would say as far as just blistering in general wearing heels, it's important to use a blister block. I recommend either the Band-Aid brand blister stick that you can get or Pre-Heals by Barefoot Scientist. You've probably seen my review of that. Either of those do a good job with chafing. And then the other thing, just one last thing that I want to mention is, like, some people find open toe or closed toe more comfortable. I think that's very much a personal preference thing. I actually prefer, for the most part, to wear a closed toe heel. That's because for comfort-wise, I'm not worrying about having toe overhang or my foot sliding out of the shoe. I do get that with more open-toed heels. The other thing is, though, open-toed heels a lot of times give your toes a little bit more room, like wiggle room. So a lot of people find them more comfortable. I'm just more of a closed-toe person as far as, like, if I'm picking something to walk around all day in, I'm more likely to go with a Socate, for instance, than an open-toed heel. So that's just another thing to think of. I hope this has been helpful for you and that you learned something. Other than that, I just wanted to thank everybody on Patreon. Thank you guys. You're amazing. You provide so much support, both financially and just like emotionally, and helping me think through things and all that stuff. So thank you all. You're amazing. If you haven't thought about supporting me yet, I would suggest checking me out on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can support us and make sure that we can get more great content out there for you guys. So thank you very much. If you don't follow me on Instagram, it's @engineeringinheels, and please subscribe here on YouTube. I would love to continue growing this channel so I can provide you guys with the best content. Thanks.